120 undocumented students, 6 different states, one day to launch your business. We started Undocu Startup in California, but we knew that our impact had to go in more than one state. So introducing the Undocu Startup Tour, we are bringing our flagship entrepreneurship bootcamp to 6 different states for the next few months.
$26 in investment.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and we also got one client.
Like last minute, I send messages to the people I know, and I just got sent 60.
Ooh. There's only 120 spots, so apply now at www.undocustartup.com/tour. Again, www.undocustartup.com/tour, and I'll see you on the other side.
Welcome to Undocu Startup by Juan Maya Hernandez.
Disclaimer: Undocu Startup workshops are for educational purposes only. This session does not constitute legal advice, nor does participation guarantee business success, legal compliance, or income. For legal or financial matters, please consult a licensed attorney or advisor.
So again, hi everyone. If we haven't met, my name is Juan Maya Hernandez. I'm the founder of Undocu Startup. We are the leading entrepreneurship program for undocumented students. We've helped over 180 undocumented students launch 30 business ideas. And part of my work comes from my own personal experience. So when I was at UCLA, I landed my dream internship, but I wasn't able to get hired. Nonetheless, I was able to start my own HR photography business as a student, and that helped me monetize and make some money. So after I graduated, I kind of had a plan to build my business. Here are some of the values, but my long-term vision, I would say, I want to build this ecosystem of Undocu entrepreneurs. Think of an investment fund for Undocu founders. Think of working at Undocu startup alumni companies. That's really the vision here. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. And thank you all so much. I believe I've connected with you, or I've at least met you in one way, shape, or another. So let me ask you all a question. Why should we even legalize a business? Since we're a small cohort, why should we legalize a business? Feel free to unmute. What do you guys think?
I think because we're still learning how to manage a business, and also, a lot of us could be undocumented. We're trying to make sure that we're able to protect ourselves if anything goes wrong, especially since we're still learning how this process works while we're trying to make an income and something livable off of this opportunity.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Liz. Yeah, well, you want to legalize a business for a few reasons, right? And Carlos, I believe you also posted it on the chat. To bring credibility, Hemang, to not have any legal troubles. I think those are the two of the good ones. And Giselle, thank you so much for joining. We're actually just getting started. So I was just asking the group, why should we even legalize a business? Do you have any idea on why legalizing a business is important, especially for Undocu community? But yeah, you guys kind of mentioned it already. There's really 2 biggest reasons why you should legalize a business. Okay. Oh, credibility. Yes, thank you so much. Good to know you're there. The first reason why you want to legalize a business is because you'll run into a roadblock if you don't legalize it. So your growth in terms of business purposes, you'll hit a roadblock. There's going to be a certain point where if you don't legalize it, you won't be able to pass that. So personal example, when I was a student at UCLA, I had a photography business and I didn't set it up. I didn't set it up. I didn't get an I-10. I didn't get an LLC. I didn't do any of that stuff. But now, as I am building this Undocu startup and most of my contracts are with universities, I've learned that the bigger your contracts are, the more paperwork you're gonna need. So by paperwork, I mean insurance. By paperwork, I mean licenses and permits, depending on how big your clients are. So there's definitely a limit there. And the second reason is to avoid any legal fines in terms of doing business. So I personally knew a street vendor that was selling out in the streets here in California, here in Los Angeles. And when the police came, they asked her for her paperwork, her permits, her business permits, and she didn't have any vending permits. So what ended up happening was she got a ticket, and she also got all her things getting taken away. So I would say if you want to grow a big company, you're going to need to legalize it eventually. And if you want to avoid any legal fines within your city, within your state, depending on what you sell, that's also why it's also important. And even though some of us may be undocumented, right? You can still operate a legal business regardless of your status. That's the most important thing. But for example, let's say you're doing contracts for 100,000. There's no way that you're gonna do $100,000 contract and they're not gonna ask you for your permits. They're not gonna ask you for insurance. They're not gonna ask you for a tax ID. That's not gonna happen. Um, Whereas if you're doing photography, $15, $20 services, then it may not matter as much, right? It may not matter as much. So those are the two biggest reasons. Right. So now I'm gonna jump into the framework on how exactly you legalize the business. Now, to make it simple, I put together a legal framework. It's really only 5 steps, and at the end, we're going to talk about how you can also protect your identity as you're legalizing your business, especially during these times when immigrant communities are under attack by the Trump administration, and then everything happening around the U.S. All right. So first step, the first L in this legal framework, and I kind of put it like this because it helps me memorize it. So hopefully it also helps you all too. But the L in legal stands for looking ahead. Right? It starts with, where do I see this business in the next 6 months? All right. And then I'm going to tie this into how this is going to make it easier for you to think about LLCs, to think about sole proprietor. But it starts with, where do you see this in the next 6 months? One of the things that you might think about is, maybe I just want to keep it as a side hustle. That's around $8,000 yearly income. Or maybe you want to you want to make your business and you want to be self-employed. So self-employed just means that now you're doing it full time, but all your revenue, all your contracts depends on you. That's another way that you can think about your goal. Or maybe you're at a point where you can hire other people. Or maybe you want to raise money from investors, kind of like Facebook, kind of like Meta, kind of like Grubhub, like these big tech companies. And like that, you want to do it full time. So the first question you have to ask yourself is, where do I see this in the next 6 months? Because as you'll see, you're going to need way more protection if you set up as a small business than if you set up like as a side hustle, right? As a side hustle, if I'm just reselling items, then I may not need a lot of legal permits and licenses. But if I'm actually having a business, I want to hire people, and then there's other things that I want to consider. So it starts with your goal. That's the first step. All right. It starts with your goal. The second step stands for E. The E stands for exploring your rights. Right. Now, it's beautiful that y'all are in different states, because in different states, there's different bills that actually support undocumented entrepreneurs. And I'm going to share them with you all right here. Now, this is some of the research that I've done across all the different states. But there's certain Senate bills or assembly bills that end up allowing you to either apply for professional licenses with an ITIN number, but also there's other requirements that remove different things. So for example, in California, there's these 3 bills, and these 3 bills allow you to apply to over 133 professional licenses with just using an ITIN number, right? So you can apply for cosmetology, construction, your real estate license in California, as long as you have a valid ITIN number. It also allows you to get a certain business license with just an ITIN number, not an SSN. And it allows you to start applying for small business contracts with the city and the local officials. In Colorado, there's something similar, the SB 21199. Again, they changed the requirements for obtaining state and local benefits and licenses. So again, very similar to California. And Washington, also very similar. They have something called HB 1889. New Jersey, again, this is all around professional licenses. And maybe you're wondering, like, why does this even matter when you're trying to develop your business? Well, let's say, for example, you want to set up a business in real estate. Understanding that you can actually receive a professional real estate license is going to allow you to start a business there. And then there's all these other ones, right? So in Vermont and Nevada, now, even though I'm still doing research in this, but this is everything that I have up to this point. But the number one thing that you have to understand when you're legalizing your business is that you can set up a business with just an ITIN number, and you can get an EIN. And I'll talk about the EIN in a few more slides. But these are just some of the bills that y'all should know, depending on where you're located. If you live in a state where maybe there's not bills like this, that's also okay. But I always recommend you all to start looking at what are the different bills that accept ITINs in terms of professional licensing, because that's going to allow you to look at what are the businesses I can create. Okay, so I would say that's step number two, right? So understand what are the resources around me in my state, and then how can I use that to start legalizing my business, right? So that is step number two. Step number three, and these are some citations as well. So feel free to take a picture of it. I have some of the dates when these were passed, and again, these are from the government agencies as well. But I can also send a follow-up email with more information about these as well, if that's something that y'all would like as well. All right. So that was step number two. Now, step number three is getting your tax ID number, right? There's three types of tax IDs that you need to think about. But why is the tax ID important? Well, it's important because if you want to legalize your business, everything is going to be based off of taxes. Okay. Now, we've heard about the tax ID, the social security number. I'm not going to go into it crazily because it might apply to you if you're a DACA recipient, maybe you're a permanent resident, US citizen, but I include it here because maybe in the future, some of you will be eligible um, to apply for an SSN. But just to keep it really simple in terms of the SSN, it allows you to work legally. You're able to set up your business with it. But I'm gonna skip this because this is the one that is most common. Everybody kind of understands this. Now, the one that you have to, the last two are the ones that are more important. So the ITIN number, I'm sure you heard about this, but it stands for Individual Tax Identification Number. It doesn't give you permission to work legally. But what it does allow you to do is it allows you the opportunity to pay your own taxes, regardless of whether you have an SSN or not. Now, this is good for people that are not residents, that are dependents, and you can apply through this W-7 form, and specifically for people that don't have an SSN. Now, some people use an ITIN number because they are investors from other countries to be able to buy businesses here with an ITIN and pay their taxes here. So that's the most common one. Again, it doesn't give you work authorization, but you don't need work authorization to start your business. So that's where it kind of gets a little complicated, but nonetheless, you can use an ITIN to set up your company. Now, the one that I want you to focus on is this third tax ID number called the EIN. And the EIN stands for Employer Identification Number. Now, this number, you can get it as long as you have a valid ITIN number or a valid SSN number. All right, so you need either an ITIN or an SSN to apply for an EIN. And this EIN, you want to think of it like a social security number for your business. Specifically, this is used for businesses, this is used for nonprofits, estates, trusts. Um, and you apply for it using an SS4 form. Now, why is this important? Business taxes. If you're setting up a business bank account, they're gonna ask you for an EIN. I know because that's how I set up mine. If you're receiving any form of business credit, you're gonna need an EIN. If you want to hire somebody, you are also gonna need an EIN. And I always recommend this one because this is the one that I personally use every single time I run my contracts. So like that, I don't just give my SSN or my ITIN to just about anybody. Again, so this one specifically for your business taxes. Okay. Now, how do you apply for this? I'll share with you right now, but they're all connected. There's also other tax ID numbers out there as well. All this information comes from the IRS website, so I also recommend you all to look at that as well. But if you wanted to apply to an ITIN tomorrow, is actually really simple. So assuming that you're not an LLC, assuming that you have an ITIN number, and assuming that you're going to be using your name to do your business, you can fill out this form, and you can see this form is on the IRS website. It's very simple, and there's different reasons on why you should apply for an EIN. I kind of mentioned them in the past, but also on the IRS website, there's instructions that you can read. So all of the information that I am getting comes directly from this. Is literally just like 2-3 pages. So I also recommend you all to read through it. But why should you get an EIN? Well, you need an EIN to either start a new business or if you're gonna hire employees in the future. When I've helped some of the students in the past, and even when I applied to my own EIN, I always selected the reason for me getting an EIN was because I was starting a new business, and these are all the lines that you would need to fill out. Now, if you have a social security number, you can also do this online. If you don't have a social security number, you would need to print out this document and then you would need to mail it. And you would expect to receive your EIN within 4 to 6 weeks. But this is kind of like a cheat sheet. So if again, I'll share this with you all after our presentation. But yeah, you can see, I guess, kind of going into it a little bit. Right here, you will write down the name of your business. You will write down where you're doing business from right here, city, state, the county, name of responsible party. This would be your name. You can see 7B. This is where you would write down whether you have SSN, ITIN, or EIN. So again, you would need these two to apply for an EIN. Yeah. And then there's all these other ones, type of entity. We're going to talk about this in the next few steps, like sole proprietor, partnership. And then it kind of talks about, do you have employees? Every single time I've submitted one, I always put 0 over this. And then this section right here is also important. So it says third party designee. So if you want somebody to fill out this form on behalf of you, then you would just write down their name. And then like that, if you, yeah, you're just basically giving them permission to fill this out for you in the past. But again, this is just like a general one. And again, this is assuming that you're not setting up an LLC, you're doing this on behalf of your name, and you would receive it within 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. Another thing, again, I remember if you have an SSN, you can do it online. If you don't have an SSN, you would need to print it and you would need to mail it to this address right here. But again, this is all on the IRS website. This is all based on the instructions from the IRS. So it's not information that I came up with. It's something that is publicly available for y'all to also check out as well. Okay. So yeah, you wait 4 to 6 weeks. And it doesn't come in the same way like an I-10 comes with, like the way the I-10 comes. It also doesn't look like an SSN. It actually shows up as a letter like this, and it'll give you the name of your business up here. And then on the right-hand side, it would give you the employer identification number. So when you receive it, this is your confirmation, and that's what you can begin using as well. Okay. So that is step number 3. Yeah, that's step number 3. So EIN, again, just think of Social Security for my business, and you can use that number to set up a business bank account, hire people, protect your identity, apply for business credit. So irrelevant out of your I-10, your EIN specifically for business purposes. Okay. So I always recommend that one. All right, next step. The A in legal stands for assign ownership. Okay, so this is where you start talking about sole proprietors. This is where you start talking about partnerships. This is where you start talking about limited liability companies, corporations. So I'm going to give you a quick introduction on which, and I'm going to give you like an example of each to kind of help you think about what business structure should I actually go for as I'm setting up my business. All right, so why does it matter? First one, raising money. If you want to raise money from investors, right? There's certain business structures that are not going to be useful. If you want to expand your business, a sole proprietorship might not be the best, but again, we'll dive into it. But if you're going to expand your business, again, you're going to need more paperwork. That ties into the third one. But the most important reason why you should think about your business structure is really for this, a lawsuit vulnerability. So what does this mean? Depending on who owns your business and depending on what the structure of your business is, let's say somebody sues you, certain business structures have more protection over others. And again, I'm going to dive into this. But really, you want to think of your business structure as what are the risks involved with my business? Who can actually sue me? And how can I protect myself moving forward? All right. So let's start off with this first one that I kind of mentioned in the past. One of the ways that you legalize your business is a sole proprietor. Now, on the basic level, as long as you have a tax ID number, and as long as you have a name, and as long as you are doing a service, you are a sole proprietor. All right. So all this really means is that you and the business are the same person. All right. Now that could be good because it's really cheap to start, but it could be bad because if something happens to your business, like you owe money, then that means you and the business owe money at the same time. All right. So here are some of the good things and some of the bad things about it. So the good things about it is that it's easy to set up. Really, to set up a sole proprietor, all you need is a business name. If you're using your own name, yeah, that's already free, right? You may need a business license, also free, that you can get in the city where you live in. And if you set up a business bank account, that's also free. Maybe you need to get an ITIN number, EIN number. That's really all you need. And that's assuming that you're not doing something like in real estate. That's assuming that you're not doing something that needs other licenses. But let's say, for example, me, I want to be a photographer, right? Then I really just needed my name, I needed my equipment, business license maybe within the city that I want to operate in. So on the good side is really low cost. You don't need to pay anything more than $100 to set up a sole proprietor because it's really simple. But the bad part about it is that one, it may not look professional, right? If you do a contract and it says your name, it's not going to look professional as opposed to something that says, I don't know, prepare LLC, right? Uh, and the most important reason why is really bad is because you have unlimited personal liability. Again, somebody sues you, you and the business are the same person. So again, every debt, every problem that you get into also becomes your problem, and it's not just the business problem; it's you and the business, right? So although it's the cheapest, it's not the one that I recommend the most. However, if you're looking at like what type of business should become a sole proprietor, think of this example: a freelance graphic designer. Now, why is this a great example? Because you have direct control over your projects. It's really simple for you to set up, right? As long as you have internet, a laptop, you can really start this tomorrow, and you can adapt towards all your different clients. The likelihood of you getting sued is not high, so you also don't have to think about that as well. But yeah, like this is a quick example. The same thing with my photography, right? There's not a lot of risk for somebody suing me over a bad photo. Um, and yeah, I'll leave it there in terms of some examples for the sole proprietor. Okay. The next one is the corporation. So this one is probably the one that is think of this. So I'll dive into it. But this one is the one that you have the most protection, but it's also the most complicated one. Right. In the basic level, a corporation is a separate business that is owned by the people that buy shares in the company. Okay. So shareholders. So ultimately, for you to own a corporation, and the only reason why I know this is because I set up Prepare was the name of my company is Prepare LLC, but before that, it was a corporation. And when I set it up, I kind of went through this process of buying stocks in my own company and all this stuff. But ultimately, think about it like this. All right. Let's say your business is a cake. Okay. And when you're setting up a corporation, you want to look at it this way, right? When you set up a corporation, think of it like a cake. Um, that cake, you can cut it up into multiple pieces, and you get to decide as the investor how many pieces of the cake you want to buy for yourself, right? When I set up my corporation, I chose between 3 to 4 million shares. And the reason why you choose all these shares is because, again, you're the investor in your own company. Now, when you buy a share in your own company, the shares are very cheap. They're 0.00001. So if I buy $3 to $4 million, it's gonna cost me like around $300. And yes, you do have to pay $300 to the company for you to own it in the corporation. Like you actually have to buy those pieces of stocks within your company. But the most important thing is that the shares, they're not always going to be worth 0.0001. As the company increases in value, these shares could go up to maybe $100, $10. So on the math side, at the beginning, if they're worth 0.0001 and I buy 3 million, I need to pay $300 to set up the corporation to say that I'm the investor, I'm the owner. But over time, let's say the company grows in market share. Let's say the company wants to sell in the future. Maybe the shares end up now being worth $10 each. And let's say you still own 3 million. That's why then you look at people that are extremely wealthy and they're worth millions and millions of dollars, but they may not have millions of dollars in the bank, but they built something that is worth $30 million. Like, again, I mean, this is not a math lesson, but this is the way that it helps me understand it. So, corporation, it's a cake. You choose how many pieces you cut it into. Those pieces are worth really small at the beginning, so you buy them. But over time, you can then sell pieces of that company to investors to get money, and that's kind of like how it works on the back end of owning it. Okay, so how do you set it up? You need an articles of incorporation. You need to pay a filing fee, and you also need to assign who are the directors. You need to adopt bylaws, like you need to write an agreement, and you want to issue stock. And again, stock are those little pieces of shares that you have in the cake. And you also have to figure out who are the types of owners. So you have to declare this when you set it up. So who are the directors, who are the officers, who are the investors? When I did this, I was all three of them and you're able to do so at the beginning, but over time, these are people that you can shift down the line as well. So again, pros and cons. The good things about it: limited liability. A corporation and yourself are separate. So if the corporation gets sued, if they get into debt, it's the corporation is on its own, right? Similarly, the good thing about it is like, if y'all have ever heard this concept of a parent company, that means that a corporation can buy other companies. A corporation can start another company, right? That's why Meta, like Facebook, Meta Incorporation owns Instagram, owns WhatsApp, because the parent company can actually buy other companies. All right, so that's kind of like how that works on the back end. Most investors, if you ever see people raising money, they're attracted to corporations, and that's probably the only one that is gonna invest into your company. Right. And the other thing I'm mentioning here is that corporations really only have two goals. Either go public, so that means sell stock on the public stock market, like Apple, like Google, or they can sell their company. So if you own a corporation, you could actually sell all that company and to another company or to other you could just sell it ultimately. Now the bad parts about it is that it's really complex to set up and you get taxed double. And there's also more regulation. So you have to keep track of meeting notes. You have to keep track of all these other things. And it's just a mess. If you're not raising money from investors, you don't really need a corporation. And if you don't want to go public or sell your company in the future, you also don't really need a corporation. But that's kind of like that's like a surface level of it. That's kind of like how I understand it myself. Now some examples. So who ends up building a corporation? Companies like Meta, companies like Airbnb, companies like Uber, they raise millions and millions of dollars, similar like this. If you ever see these headlines, is because they sold those pieces that we talked about in exchange for money. And that's kind of like how the equity shares work on the back end. All right. And also pharmaceutical companies use them as well. They also raise capital for research, universities, right? But those are just some examples. But yeah, just think of the corporation as its own person. It can buy companies, it can sell the company, it can exchange money for pieces of the company. But it has more regulation and you get taxed a lot more. Okay. All right, the next one is the partnerships. I see the time, but the partnerships is similar to a sole proprietor, where it doesn't require a lot of paperwork. But this one is like a sole proprietor plus another person. And then there's also different types. So there's limited partnerships, they're registered limited partnerships. I'm not going to go into depth in these, but um, just think about it like this. So it's very similar like the sole proprietor, where the business and you are the same person. But now in a partnership, it's the business, it's you and another person. Okay, so they own the business together. And in certain states like these, California, Nevada, New York, and Oregon, certain professionals are not allowed to form limited liability partnerships. Um, so these are mainly people in the medical field and the accounting field. There's other regulations within the partnerships that you're not able to do. I don't know the specifics of that, but if you guys want to learn more about it, I definitely recommend it as well. Now, how do you set it up? You choose the partners because again, a sole proprietor is one person. A partnership is you and another person. You have to draft a partnership agreement. Who's going to get paid what? You need an EIN because you also need to open a business bank account. Okay. Now, pros and cons. The good. Well, you're more resourceful, right? It's now you and another person, so you can really take advantage of different resources. And you also share the responsibilities. So partnerships could be between me and somebody that's gonna give me money. Um, that's doable as long as there's agreement there. Now the bad part about it is that you're joint liability. So remember, sole proprietor is you and the business are the same. Partnership is also you and someone else and the business are the same. So if your partner gets in trouble, doesn't pay their debts, is getting in trouble with something, it's also gonna affect you as well. And there could also be different conflicts with different partners because it really depends on trust. Okay. Now, who actually sets up a partnership? Think of law firms. Most of the law firms are limited liability partnerships. So the reason why they do this is, for example, they could be a general law firm, but they can offer immigration, they can offer tax law, they can offer corporate law. and that's how they can join. Again, you're becoming more resourceful. Most law firms are like this. Most accounting firms are like this because there's different versions of taxes, right? Like there's business tax, there's individual tax, there's fraud and all these other stuff that happens as well, like in the tax area. Medical practices, same thing, right? Orthopedics, and there's like assistants. Most of them are also set up as partnerships as well. So again, if you're doing something within those industries, you may want to set up a partnership if you want to offer different ranges of services as well. Now, the last one, because I know we're going onto the legal side of stuff, but the last one is the one that everybody talks about, the limited liability company. This is known as the LLC. This is actually the newest form of business. It was created in 1977. Think of this one as a hybrid between the sole proprietor and the corporation. So it's not as expensive as the corporation and is not as regulated, but the difference is that this one, you and your business are separate. So you do have limited liability, you have a lot more protection, and there's also different types. As I was doing research within an LLC, I got a book around limited liability companies. In certain states, you're actually able to set up an anonymous LLC, which is extremely important, especially during these times if you want to protect your identity. But there's also other ones, a single member LLC. This means that you are the owner of your own LLC. I currently have a single member LLC. Partnership LLC is between you and another person. Series LLC, restricted. Anonymous, we talked about that. Member managed LLC, if you've ever heard the concept of a worker cooperative, that's an example of a member managed LLC where everybody, let's say there's 5 people, every single person has an equal say and every single person has a part of the LLC. Again, these I'm just going over the general information, but I do recommend you all to kind of dive deeper into them. Important information, again, applying to doctors, healthcare professionals, lawyers, accountants. They're not able to set up a limited liability company. They must form a limited liability partnership. Again, and we talked about that a little bit in the previous, in the partnership section of this presentation. Now, how do you set it up? The first thing is you have to look up for the name of your LLC to see if it is actually available within your state. You fill out an articles of organization, you write an operating agreement, not always required, but if you have multiple people, you get an EIN and you also pay the filing fee. That one depends on the state where you live in. So again, most of these are very simple on where you can find this information as well. Good things and bad things, like I mentioned, some of the good things about it is liability protection. You and the business are separate. If the LLC gets in trouble, you're pretty much good. Like it doesn't really affect you because you're separate people. The owners are not employees, which is also good. And it's also very easy to manage where you can have multiple members on the LLC. Now, some of the bad parts about it, and the reason why I don't recommend everybody to start with an LLC is because it's $800 every single year for the tax of the LLC. So think of this as the membership of your LLC, right? I paid it the past 2 years. It's $800 regardless of whether you make money or not, right? So unless you're making significant revenue, you don't really want to think about an LLC unless you're in an industry where things can go wrong and you can get sued. You don't want to think about the LLC. And it does cost a little bit more than the sole proprietor and the partnership because you have a little bit more things to consider. But yeah, those are some of the good, those are some of the bad. I currently have an LLC. I've had a corporation in the past, and the sole proprietor, most of the students that I work with during the programs end up just setting up a sole proprietor at the beginning. Now, some examples of who actually needs an LLC. Think of a restaurant business. Let's say a customer gets food poisoning and they decide to sue the restaurant. Then the LLC means that the owner's personal stuff is not going to be at risk. So maybe the company gets sued, but the owner's stuff is not going to be at risk. It's not going to matter. Anything that has high risk of people suing you, you want to set up an LLC, right? So construction company, you need an LLC. Let's say somebody falls down, they break their leg, well, you need that. You also need insurance, but you want to make sure you're protected on all fronts when it comes to a high risk business versus a low risk business, right? Most of the high risk businesses are businesses that happen in person, and most of the the low risk businesses are anything digital that doesn't have a high likelihood of you getting sued unless you're going up against like the tech giants and stuff and stuff. But yeah, anything high risk, you need an LLC, but not every company needs it. Or if you're gonna hire people, you're gonna need LLC because again, things could happen between your employees, etc. Okay. So those were all the four different business structures. So now the last thing that you have to think about is your permits and your licenses. And when you think about these, you need permits and license. You need a business license in your city, and you also need other licenses depending on the type of business and depending on your expertise. Now, if you live in California, and I'm gonna touch on the other states in the next slide. But if you live in California, for example, you visit www.calgo.gov, you go on here, you select what city you're doing a business in, and then you enter your business type, and it's gonna show you all the permits and licenses that you might need. Alternatively, in your state, if you go on Google and you research business licenses and permits in the name of the state, then you will find similar websites like this in other states. So, for example, in Texas, you would visit Texas SOS Direct Business Search, and again, similar. It is they all work very similar. And again, this is specifically for different states. You can look at Delaware again, Georgia. But again, I'll make sure I share this with you also. Y'all can have access to this. I'm still not done looking at every single state, but these are the ones that I currently was able to find. But again, it's as simple as going onto that website, looking at where is the city where you live in, the county, and then selecting the business type, and then it's going to give you a list. Now, I don't know if they do this in every state. Again, that's part of the research that I'm currently doing right now. But at least in California, it does give you websites and contact information of people if you need more help. So that's also important. Again, I can't confirm that this happens in every state, but once I have that information, and as long as you signed up through the platform, then I'll be able to email this to you all. But again, this is where you would find all your permits and licenses on a case-by-case basis as well. Okay. Now, I do have 10 more minutes, which is good. I want to add identity protection tips, especially during these times. And there's a total of 9 strategies that you can use to also protect your identity as you're legalizing your business and you're marketing this out to the public. All right. There's 9 strategies. The first one is, let's say you're working from home, right? When you set up your business and when you give contact information to your clients, if you work from home, you're gonna have to give your personal home address, right? And that's something that a lot of us don't want to give away their home address. So what is one thing you can do? There's actually something called a virtual business address. And this is something that I am currently using right now. I'm currently using it right now. I use this website called iPostal1, and you pay a monthly fee to get your mail at another location. So for example, you visit this website, iPostal1, you look at what are the different addresses you can purchase, and that acts like your personal mailbox, and you can use that business address, that different address, as your business address yourself. And now there's also other websites like Anytime Mailbox. And the way that it works is your clients are gonna send all the documents to that digital mailbox, and you can pick it up in person. At least the one that I'm using, they don't charge me a fee to pick up my mail, but this is a great way for you to kind of stay protected, and if you're giving away your address to different people, right? And it varies from $20 a month to $50 a month. Again, it's an investment, but I always think that if you don't want to publicly put your home address, at least when you're starting out, then this would be a great way. An alternative could also be if you rent out a certain location and you use the address of that location, that also works, but that's more expensive. This one is $20 a month. And I personally use it. So if you have any questions in terms of iPostal, how you use it, I'm also happy to help you. Just definitely let me know. So that's one thing you can do. Second thing you can do, can I protect my identity when contacting clients via email? Yes, you can create a business email or a separate email for your business. So if you guys notice, I have a business email called jmyhearn@undocustartup.com. I misspelled that, But you can also create just a separate email to contact all your clients, like that is not connected to your personal email. That's in terms of connecting with your clients. Strategy number 3, can I protect my identity when I get a bank account? You can. Again, if you're setting up a business bank account, you're going to need an EIN number. And that EIN number is going to help you set up that account. That account is going to be under your business name. So it won't even have to have your name visible online. But yeah, that's one way you can protect your identity there. Strategy number 4, when you work with clients, especially when you're doing any form of freelancing, contracting, anything that requires contracts, there's this document called the W-9, and it looks like this. I'm sure y'all have heard about it. But on this section, they're gonna so ultimately they give you this document so they can have your tax ID and send you the form so you can file your taxes at the end of the year. But in this document, you're going to have to either write down your social security number, your ITIN number, or your EIN number. What I always do is I use an EIN number. Because imagine, let's say you have 100 clients, 200 clients, and every single client has your social security number. That can be like something that you don't want to share, right, with just about anybody. But if you use an EIN number, again, the EIN is just the social security for business. So like that, they're probably not going to ask you about your status. They're not going to ask you, just be like, no, I'm a business owner with an EIN, and there's really nothing. But yeah, if you don't want to share your tax ID with every single client, like your ITIN or SSN, definitely consider getting an EIN and include it down here. That's what I've been doing with my business for sure. Okay. Strategy number 5. This is also important, right? Can I protect my identity when I am marketing my business? You can. One of the creative ways you can do is instead of marketing it on behalf of your name, on behalf of and showing your face, you can create a mascot, kind of like McDonald's, Wendy's, Hershey's. Maybe have a mascot behind your brand, and that's how you can start branding your business. You don't have to make it about your status. I know I do it, but I know a lot of people don't want to. So again, make a mascot for your business. It's another thing you can do. Can I protect my identity when naming my business? Yes, I didn't touch on this throughout my presentation, but for sole proprietor, if you wanna set up your business under a different name, you have to get something called a doing business as or a fictitious business name. You look at the city where you live in, and you just look up DBA at the city where you live in, and you can file a different name on behalf of the city so you can do business. And normally these don't cost anywhere, they don't cost any more than $20-$30. You also have to publicize it in a newspaper, but all those steps, all of those steps are when you file them out. Very simple, but again, this is only if you want to do business under a different name. Um, but yeah, that's a great way for you to sort of protect your name when you're doing business. Number 7, when contacting clients, you can use a secondary phone number to contact them. Again, if you don't want to share your phone number, one of the things that I don't know if y'all do this, but at least for me, my phone number is tied to things such as my bank account. My phone number is tied to things such as my social media handles, right? So if anybody has my phone number, they can find on my social media accounts. But if I don't want that, I can either get a separate phone number or just get a secondary phone number on an application on iOS or even on Android as well. And that's also another way to contact people without specifically giving them your phone number. So like that, not just anybody can contact you. Yeah, that's something that I thought about as well. When you set up your business, especially an LLC, a corporation, somebody has to receive legal documents on your behalf. And also when people, so there's this website called the Secretary of State. Let me type it in the chat. And there's a Secretary of State in every single state across the US. And on that website, if somebody knows the name of your company, they can look up the address and the name of the person that is the registered agent. But one of the ways that you can avoid your name from showing up in your public address is to use a registered agent. So this is actually somebody that receives legal documents on behalf of your business. Attorneys can help you with this, accountants can help you with this. The way that I did it is I just use an online platform called LegalZoom, and they can help you set up an LLC. Everything has gone through them. They receive all the legal documents, but obviously you have to pay. I pay like $200 every year just for them to receive these documents. But again, accountants can help you out with this, and attorneys can also help you out with this as well. And then the last one is, can I protect my identity if I work inside a business without being listed as an employee? I talked about a worker cooperative throughout this presentation, at least a little bit, but ultimately a worker co-op is just a business that is owned by all the members in that business. So this is probably closest to getting a full-time job, being undocumented. And there's different worker-owned cooperatives that exist. But outside of that, that's one of the ways where you can be part of a company without necessarily sharing your name and be an owner of it as well. So that's the last strategy there. And with that, I think we reached time. So just a reminder, I did end up postponing a few of these events. But on October 1st, we have how to launch a business without an SSN. On November 19th, we have how to legalize your business. So just be it'll just be similar information like today. And then on October 15th, we'll have how to launch a business with artificial intelligence. So if y'all are interested in that, definitely sign up using the same Luma link as well. But with that being said, everyone, I appreciate your time. What are your questions?
Welcome to Undocu Startup by Juan Maya Hernandez.